Hey, good evening, everybody. This is our 5:30 special city council meeting, and we are having a workshop for the community center design. I'll call this meeting to order at 5:30. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Dynas,
Here.
Councilmember Diedrich,
Here.
Councilmember Temple,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Carwin is absent, Mayor Estrada,
Here.
Commissioner Gidroyce,
Here.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Here.
Commissioner Tremblay is absent, Vice Chair Peterson,
Here.
and Chair Faust.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilman Diedrich, can you please lead us in the pledge, sir? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilman Diedrich. Now we'll move on to our discussion portion. This is 4.1, Menifee Community Center Design Workshop. May I please ask Community Services Director Mariana Mitchell to introduce the item. Good evening, Mariana.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and members of the community. Mariana Mitchell, Community Services Director, and I'm pleased to be here tonight as we continue to share the progress of the future Menifee Community Center, which is a project that is shaped by the ideas, energy, and the input of our residents. The future community center will be located near the intersection of La Piedra and Menifee Road, adjacent to the Menifee Library, and is envisioned to be a vibrant and flexible space that will support recreation, arts, culture, and a wide range of community events. It is designed to serve the residents of all ages and interests for many years to come. Tonight's workshop marks another important step as we move forward towards finalizing the design, and community feedback has been instrumental in shaping the building's layout, programming, and design elements. We're excited to present the latest updates based on what we've heard. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Bill Dennis, principal at TSK Architects, who has been leading the design efforts and will walk us through the updated plans and next steps.
Welcome, Mr. Dennis.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. Thanks to the PRTC, and thank you, Mariana, for the introduction. I'm very excited to bring to you the updates and the design progress so far, and to touch on a lot of the points that came up in our last workshop meeting, and to go through our responses to them, and then also where we are in the project as a whole. So where we are now, our last workshop was really focused on finalizing a lot of the design development items within the project. We are now trying to move into construction documents, which is where we're documenting and detailing specific design elements for the construction process. But knowing that there were still a few areas that were left open from the last workshop, we wanted to make sure that we touched on, especially some of the parking, some of the building signage, and then as well as the status of the visual and performing arts space, and how we've reacted to the community in bringing more of a presence to that stage area. Just to quickly reiterate some of the things that we've talked in our past workshops, the design intent and the guiding principles that we've worked with for this project is to integrate the surrounding programs, especially with the library that's adjacent next door. And so we've tried to meet the mood and the feel and the architectural thumbprint of that building while creating our own independent campus and architectural detail just across the parking lot. Sustainability-wise, we're looking at mass and timber structure using regenerative materials, indirect daylighting, and protecting the space within from influence from the sunlight and things of that nature to reduce load on the building systems. Access to outdoor spaces, and then again, the high performance design as it relates to water use, water function, energy function, and things of that nature. So one of the questions that was wanted to be answered from the last workshop was, what was the landscape presence going to look like within and around the community center and the building itself. And so these, what you're seeing now on the screen, are updated renderings that not only show a more photorealistic building, but also what the landscape context is going to look like, around the parking lot, within the parking lot islands, but then also around the building itself and its strategies for shading certain portions of the building. You'll see that there's ample landscaping. We want to bring a lot of mature trees and shading elements to the building, but also to provide a presence to the outdoor lawns and landscaped areas and the events kind of courtyard that's on the west side of the building, but also on the extremities of the parking lot to provide a buffer area between residents that are across the street on Bayport, those that are behind, and then, you know, from La Piedra and across to the Park and Community Center and Rec Center that's over there. But keeping it a little open to encourage continuity between the parking lot that exists over at the library and over to what will be the new parking lot here at the community center.
And excuse me, Mr. Dennis, I just want to share with my fellow council members and commissioners, feel free to hop in and ask a question at any time. The slide presentation is about 27 slides, so fire at will.
Please do. Make it a conversation for sure. I love talking, so. Looking at the site in diagram here, you know, what we're doing is we're working under the directive to maximize parking spaces. And so the driving principle for the parking lot on the site here is to maximize the amount of parking. And so you see in the middle there, we're providing 95 spaces. That's beating the library's parking lot on the other side by a little more than 20, as well as providing ample room for fire apparatus, trash services and things like that to come in. Our parking lot does go into the setbacks a little bit there, but you know, these are non-structural elements, and so we are, you know, well within those setback requirements for those. But again, working to provide the max amount of parking spaces. As it comes to the library's parking, there is going to be a reciprocal agreement that's in place for overflow parking to happen over there. And though you don't see on the screen here any physical connection for vehicles to pass between the community center parking lot and the library's parking, we're going to provide ample means of access for pedestrians to transit, whether you park in one area or the other to go to the library or the community center, vice versa. And that's something that we'll encourage. You'll notice that there is one entryway to the community center parking lot. This is off Bayport, and this is to reduce the influence of traffic backing up on La Piedra and then off into Menifee Road. And to discourage, again, the need for a vehicle access between the library and the community center. Again, looking at the massing and landscaping, just real quick, providing ample shade, that's very important for Southern California. Ample shade for people who are using the outdoors, ample shade for the building to reduce energy use on building systems, but also to beautify, you know, what is currently an open and vacant lot. You know, specific trees and vegetation of that nature has not been picked specifically yet, but we would be operating under things that are native and endemic to California: live oak, sycamore, Palo Verde, things of that nature, small sagey type vegetation, similar to what you see just across the parking lot at the library as well.
Excuse me, Mr. Dennis.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Goodroy, go ahead.
The parking for handicap, how many spaces out of the 95?
There are 6.
6.
Yep,
Okay, and Bayport is the only in and out road?
correct.
Because the traffic of an event is going to all pour in then on Bayport and pour out of
Yes,
Bayport.
so actually one of the principles and why we were going off is goes back all the way to our early community workshop, and that some of the community members were mentioning that when there was events, when the library parking lot was going to be used and in full, that the traffic was often backing up into the more main road, Menifee, that's just there. And then those people would also go into the neighboring community to park, and the traffic would become kind of unmanageable. And so we're trying to eliminate.
divert it.
Exactly,
But
more.
we're going to wind up with traffic backing up on Bayport in front of all the homeowners, and there's no traffic control device there, just a stop sign, I believe.
There is a stop sign there. We do believe that because of the proximity is further away from Menifee Road and off, that we would have a little bit more of an alleviance of that if there's people going into the parking lot.
Yeah, I
there.
realize it's outside the scope of this building, but I think we're going to have to put in some kind of traffic control beyond just a sign.
Yeah, that's like an offsite improvement kind of thing, but definitely,
It's not something we need to broadly look at.
perhaps. I'm not a traffic expert necessarily, but yeah.
Maybe that's something we could investigate. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Goodroy. Mr. Dennis, I was going to ask about oak trees in the landscaping. Commissioner Faust had mentioned it in a previous meeting. Is that correct, Commissioner?
Yes, yeah, certainly native species, drought-tolerant species.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Western oak, or coast live oak, or western sycamore, things like that.
Yep, definitely these are trees that we usually use as guiding principles for Southern California, us being residents of. I've done them at my own house with native California landscaping. We do selectively find places on sites for things like Coast Live Oak and others because of their protective status in some nature. And so we would strategically put them where there might not be the potential for expansion on the building or anything that could cause a problem earlier. But there's ample space in the parking lots, and what we're going to be using as sound and berms on the extremities of the parking lot, and within that kind of eastern side lawn for the building. I think there's plenty of space for them.
So, Mr. Dennis, there are going to be oak trees on this site or not?
Like I said, we haven't specifically picked the trees yet.
Okay. I have
Yeah.
other topics to bring up that might tie into the oak trees later on, but I just wanted to drop the seed. No pun intended. Okay, Mr. Peterson, Commissioner Peterson.
I just have a quick question on the traffic. What would be the, let's just say on an average hour of any day during, let's say 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., what would be the average number of cars per hour that you expect in and out of the community center? And then on a peak time when there's an event, what would be the period of time that you'd expect for those cars to essentially empty out?
Yeah, I don't think we have the information to be able to answer that accurately. I mean, it would take a traffic study to monitor what kind of, current traffic is happening there. And then also, if there was a community production happening there, obviously that level would increase. But I don't have the information to give you something very accurate.
Thank you.
Shall I continue? All right. Again, looking at the exterior of the building, this is what we've talked about in workshops before, and the color palette, material palettes, as well as design elements that are included. We wanted to just reiterate on this because some of the more photorealistic renderings don't show things like the stippled oak tree in the perforated panel, only because of the limitations of our technology, and it's a work in progress. And so we just wanted to ensure that you all knew that those were still design elements that are included in the project, though you might not see them in the photorealistic renderings that are coming up and that we just previously saw. Again, all the same design elements, backlit perforated panels with the stippled oak tree, ample glazing facing in the correct directions, site adapted. And so, like, for instance, here you don't see that stippled oak tree in there, but these are the more photorealistic renderings to show a little bit more of the building in context with its landscape, and ideas for, bringing it to life with people and pets within.
So, Mr. Dennis, I wanted to bring this up.
Sure.
Including the oak tree in this design for the community center is a topic I wanted to bring up to the commission and the council. In the past, we've included the oak tree in our identity, and we have it on some of our signage. But I had some reservations about the oak tree, and I'm willing to compromise and find a place where we can meet in the middle. I know we have it as a preliminary design right now, but the oak, our grandmother oak off of Scott Road, from what I understand, is at risk of dying, from what I've been told. There's a bacteria growing on it, and many of our residents aren't aware that the oak tree is part of our identity. Maybe us here within City Hall talk about it, but a lot of residents aren't really knowledgeable on how the oak applies to Menifee or why it's part of our identity. And so going forward with including the oak in this design, I just have reservations because should and if our grandmother oak off of Scott Road pass away, then what? Then the main symbol of or one of the symbols of our city is no longer in existence. And so I'm interested to hear what my colleagues think about that and maybe how we can address this. Well, Commissioner Peterson, I see you in the queue first.
Just to kind of add to that, we are going through a placemaking survey to find out essentially what can Menifee provide to not just our community, obviously, but to the surrounding communities and beyond. And so just to add to that point, maybe, it might be nice to know, as we go along, keep the design, any particular designs, make it more generic. And then as we kind of develop our plan for something that will make actually Menifee's identity, hopefully, that might be considered. But yeah, I just wanted to add to that.
And even the design that's showing on there now, it's representative. It doesn't have to be set. It's not integral to the building structure or building systems, really. It's an aesthetic applique. At some point during construction documents, we would have to know what that design is going to be because it is a stippled element and it's permanent to those metal panels. But certainly, if it's not necessarily wanting to be an oak tree now, it doesn't have to be.
Thank you. Commissioner Goodroyce.
Looking at the logo behind you, we have several symbols which are no longer within the city, as in the miner's pick. And it seems to me that if the tree even died, it would still be a legacy image that relates back to the history of the city as it moves forward.
Okay, excellent. Commissioner Faust.
Yeah, I second that. As I just refreshed, looking at the city seal has the oak tree in it, as well as other agricultural references and mining references. We've used the acorn in our most recent bridge designs on Holland Road, the Holland Road Bridge. I think it's a legacy image, and whether or not it ends up in the metal relief, I think it's very attractive, and I just think it still speaks to our heritage of agricultural, even going back to Native Americans as well, and how important that oak tree was there. I hope it's still part of our future identity.
And when we talk about the acorns on the freeway, totally separate topic, but, you know, I have a problem. It's difficult explaining that with friends and family driving down the freeway. Hey, look, that's part of Menifee's identity. It's the acorns on the bridge and on the freeway. You really have to take time to explain it's an acorn and not just basic crown molding. So, but going back to my original point when we talked about the landscaping and Commissioner Faust's suggestion of adding oak trees, in order to keep this design relevant and to stand the test of time, I would like to suggest putting oak trees in the landscaping of this community center so that there's relevancy going forward for today and the days this commission and council move on. So, any other thoughts on that? Commissioner Peterson?
I am
Commissioner
partial
Sanchez?
to the oak tree. I'm sorry. Yes, no, I am partial to the oak tree. My question is, how many of these trees are we going to have? Do we have an idea how many of these trees we're going to have in the facility there?
I don't have an exact number of trees, but if you can see, it's more than 10 at least. It's quite an ample amount of mature trees. At the time of their planting, some of them may be smaller, but would grow into more mature trees. But I don't think we have an exact count of how many of those mature trees would be in there.
Thank you.
You know, one thing to keep in mind regarding the California oak, I've actually grown them from seed, and they do, you know, from a young tree age, they do kind of go a little bit wonky sometimes, you know? And so I guess my suggestion would be to find more mature trees that are, you know, you clearly know how their growth is going to go, because that actually would be very cool to have those.
Right, and especially if we're looking for a marquee tree element, say, something that's going to continue the enduring story of Menifee and the oak, even if the mother oak, you know, succumbs to its disease or things like that. You know, this new one could become that new symbol of the city, you know, making the community center even more an iconic part of the city's, you know, continuing story. And so that could be selected to be a more mature tree that comes out. That's, you know, maybe it's already 10 years old. Something of that nature, and then others around it are smaller and less of the iconic tree, but yeah, it could go that route for sure.
Commissioner Goodroyce.
You're mentioning that the tree that's down on the other end of town is diseased and not doing well. I wanted to ask our tree expert, are oak trees in trouble in this city, or is it just the one tree? Before we start planting trees.
So the oak trees in themselves aren't in trouble. So if that tree, I don't know anything about it, if it's diseased or life, an oak tree or any tree in general it could be dying, but it could take 100 years before it dies in a tree. Throughout Menifee, through our right-of-ways, in the rural areas, there's probably thousands of oak trees throughout Menifee itself. Some of them are probably a couple hundred years old, some of them are 10 years old. So Menifee has a lot, but there is no issue with the oak trees in the area.
Thanks.
Commissioner Dynas. I'm sorry, Councilman Dynas.
I got demoted. What we plant now, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, I think, talking about what we want to, I don't know. I'd have to rely on the experts. I don't know if oak is the best thing to put around a building or not. I don't know. But I think that right now we need to, I thought we were to more talk about the structure and the renderings and how to move forward on the actual building itself. As it comes for the, I kind of like the look of the facade there with the oak tree in there. I think it ties in the outdoor elements into the building. That's why I like that's what my initial thought when you put that on the outside here, is it kind of gathered you and it took you from the outside and all the trees and the drawings and everything, and kind of drew you into the building. I like that idea. Whether we make a decision whether oak lives or not, I think that's not as important as making sure this looks nice. I mean, we certainly can explain it in the future of what the meaning of it, but I just kind of like the way everything tied in. That's what I kind of liked having that, and I would continue to support having that on the outside of the building.
Okay, I see no one else in the queue. Go ahead and continue with your presentation.
All right, sure. So continuing going on through the updated renderings. Once again, looking at the building in context with the landscaping, with parking, and brought to life with vehicles and such. You also see a potential signage for Menifee Community Center there on the perforated panel, but also just to give you a mood of how this massing and the scale of the building is going to sit on site. Again, this is looking from the corner of La Piedra and Bayport, and this now includes our monument sign that we've worked through design on and are proposing for review. You see the sign, it kind of emulates a small version of the building that we're designing at large there. It's got a concrete base on it. It's got the perforated metal paneling that's mimicking the shape of our metal cap on the building. Same materials, backlit lighting, and then also a digital display so that the sign at any time can be customized for whatever event is being advertised there, or any special commission type of meeting, any city announcement, things like that. Continue on with massing and landscape, just continue to show it's a lush and vibrant environment. Native landscaping, trees large and small, providing shade not only to the building but pedestrians, adding to the outdoor trellising where folks might be waiting after a show to be picked up by their loved ones. And then looking at the building signage again, this is now gone back to more of our inscaped rendering, less photorealistic, but proposed options for the signage on the building. One, having it prominently put onto the perforated metal cap in white, or down lower onto the building's lower elevations near the entrance. Back to the sign, I guess I got a little ahead of myself on there, but the signage that we're proposing there, the monument sign, it's meant to mimic the massing of the building, concrete base, digital sign, backlit lettering, and then the perforated metal panel to kind of be a little mini mass of the building there. This is on the corner of La Piedra and Bayport. Into the floor plan areas, most of this is reiterative. We are already familiar with the lobby, the long access lobby, the large meeting rooms, which can be combined into opened and combined into one large or three small. And then in context, storage space, public restrooms, administrative space, the warming kitchen, and then item number 2, the Visual and Performing Arts Center, which is our main point of talk today. And then just a quick reiteration of the interior spaces. This is the mood and the enlightenment that we're going with. And so now the big question, the VAPA and the primary concepts of its design. We heard at the last workshop that there wasn't enough presence when it came to the visual and performing arts, that it was more of a cavernous room. We're doing that to provide as much flexibility as we can so that other type of events can happen in there in the meantime between productions, and to support things like daily summer camps or indoor rainy events, things of that nature. And so we really wanted to open it up to as many primary and secondary uses as we possibly could, keeping it as flexible as possible. And to do that, you'll see in our next renderings and some of our layouts is that we're really proposing a large curtaining system, which are used typically in flexible theaters of this nature to do things like blacken out the light that might infiltrate from doors and windows, but also cross curtaining to kind of establish sort of a traditional proscenium in front of the stage to create that kind of separation between the crowd and what's going on side stage and back of house. As well as providing system support, VA, sorry, just totally dropped what I was going to say, but the AV access to productions of sizes that might not have their own equipment, so providing the backbone and the controllers and the continuity from a modular audiovisual board and tray that would be on a cart that can be moved in and out of backstage when the space isn't being used as a theater, and also not dedicating mezzanine space or increased costs due to just kind of going more in that primary theater route. And then as well as providing ample storage for when productions are going on there and things need to be stored, but then in the meantime for modular stage and things of that nature.
I don't think we talked about soundproofing for that room at our last meeting. Is there anything that's being done special for that?
So yeah, we are working with acoustic treatments on all of the walls, as well as utilizing the curtaining system as being an addition to those acoustic treatments. We are exploring what kind of acoustic treatments can be done up in the ceiling area without impeding the view to the mass timber structure that we're trying to highlight in this space. But yes, and so if there's a section there on the bottom of this screen here where you can see that we're using protective materials low for things like when stage elements are being moved around, people are coming in and out, using acoustic accent as a band through the middle, and then continuing the acoustic treatments all the way up full into the ceiling soffit. So to provide a little bit of, it's less inspiration, but a little bit more of a visual to what I'm talking about here. If you look up at VAPA layout number 1, this is more of like your full production theater, what we're proposing to happen here. That black mass you see is a modular stage system. There's a few providers. What we're using as base of the design is called Wenger, and this is to provide a little bit more of that big physical stage presence that we heard at the workshop last time. Rather than doing just the plinth on the ground, which is more experimental theater, this is providing that big modular elevated presence for the stage. And you can see in that same configuration that there's the cross curtaining to kind of act as a proscenium and to give impeded side access to the side, each of the sides of the stage. And then to give more of that darkened element of what you might see in a blacked out theater. This can be done in different kinds of configurations. If you look at number 2, you could use a portion of that Wenger system and the stage mass in the middle to provide a lower, more intimate stage, and use some of it to the modular stage to provide elevated seating in different configurations around that plinth stage. And then also to show the remainder of the flexibility is that, you can set this up with tables and chairs for a conference. If there's any kind of trade show flow, inflow from other events, and then also the big open space that can be used for, any number of recitals or support for summer camps and things like that. And so we think we've really hit that kind of like center of the Venn diagram of all these programs that we're trying to provide for the city. And these visual layouts, I hope reflect that, because we are going like quite close to what I consider like a grand theater, given the space that we're providing, without going to like the full-blown black box dedicated theater space.
Mr. Dennis, I just want to
Sure.
comment. Thank you for these renderings and for taking our suggestions from the last meeting and visualizing it for us on all the flexibility that we can use with the theater options in this room. I noticed in layout 2, you've got some side seating. Looks like that's just an optional thing that we could potentially purchase if we wanted to not just have one side with seats, that you could have it kind of 3-sided
Correct. So we have the telescoping bank of seats that would come off of the back wall, but then that modular stage that we're proposing from layout one could also be used to create those stepped, kind of elevated chair patterns there. So it's giving you a little bit of dual purpose. Of course, if you want to have, you know, both the big stage and those sides, you would purchase additional stage from Wenger. Otherwise, you reduce your stage size, and that's how we show it in more of like an experimental layout, or you know, I like to say that's like perfect for a recital or something like that, where you have a piano there, center stage, and people flanking them on either side. You know, you would probably set up those chairs on either side and then remove the whole modular stage if you're going to do something like a dance recital, or I don't know what they call karate exhibitions, but you know, something like that.
Mr. Dennis?
Yes.
So the four layouts that you have are all optional layouts with this construction pattern, correct?
Yes.
So I have two questions. One, I just didn't see, and I'm jumping ahead, but what's the seating capacity with layout number one? I'm just curious how many people would be expected to be allowed into a performance of layout one. And then my second question is, have you been involved with other construction projects of this type, and what success or challenges have been seen as you've done this with cities like us?
Yep. So to answer your first question, the capacity in option number one is 196 people. To answer question number two, I would say that to try and provide the flexibility that is being asked of this space is probably on the more extreme case of things that I've had experience with. You know, we do some of these in high schools or elementary schools where they turn into more multi-purpose rooms, and we're specifically trying to stay away from that, and when working with the city's team to stay away from that, like the images that get conjured up when you think of a multi-purpose room, but really make this an elevated space that could also be used to support sports and in the visual and the performing arts. So this is probably far on the extreme side of hitting like a bunch of different Venn diagram circles, like I've said, but it's not something that I would consider abnormal. And in the school sense, we've seen quite a lot of success usually with providing, you know, a basic set backbone for audiovisual, ample backstage storage to support a lot of these different programs that'll be happening within. And, you know, it always comes down to that. It's not the full-blown theater that everybody wants. It's not the full-blown gym that everybody wants, but that's the compromise that we make to meet in the middle, right? And so I think we've done a good job doing that here. And it has come from a lot of help from the comments of the community to make that happen. It was a little challenging to hit all those programs, but, you know, we like challenges.
Well, I like what you've done in allowing the different things to be completed here in the city, as we have so many different groups that are going to be using this, and I think it hits every single one. So I think what you've done is really nice.
Thank you.
Mr. Dennis, I have a question.
Sure.
Are all four layouts compatible with the current setup of this design center, or are you asking us to pick one of the four?
No, these are all achievable with the current design.
Okay, thank you.
So this is looking at that visual and performing arts space in section, just to get a different look at what we were talking about here. You see that modular stage mass over there to the left. You see that telescoping bank of seating. That's a permanent installation. Just to show in section kind of the height of the space, the scale of the space, and also the scale of the curtaining. But also to point out, you know, it's a little hard to see in because it's kind of like not contrasting with the black curtaining, but the bank of theater lighting that's hanging off of pipe batten from the ceiling, and also banks of theater voice lift stations and you know, wireless microphone connectivity. And so you have your access to, you know, full field lighting if you're using this as a gym or sports space or conference center. But then you also have like very direct lighting if you're going to be using this as a recital space, or a musician's going to come in, or if a play is going to be held here. Also in there, you can't see them because they're purposefully colored to match the adjacent walls, but obviously this is a fully air-conditioned and comfortable space. as well as still trying to, not impede too much of that visual access to the mass timber materials that we're highlighting in the ceiling space. Again, I got a little bit ahead of myself and said everything in the last slide, but again, there's access here, easy access to wireless mic systems, speakers, and then audio mixing boards that would be on a modular cart. And using like a modular mixing board and cart is something that we have been successful with before at places like LA County High School for the Arts. We did this at their outdoor auditorium there. It provides a high level of flexibility while still providing ease of access for production companies that might not have their own equipment, own mixing boards and things of that nature. And so again, the controllers and everything would be housed backstage in the storage area, and there would be a backbone provided to the space that's selected to provide the most flexibility and be out of the way of the production and still usable. More theater elements, the side curtains, the biparting stage curtain to create that proscenium, and then also the modular stage system, so this become one big open room, but when it is in place, it creates that grand stage presence. And then looking at a few more of those views of this in full theater mode, we'll call it. That's it. So what's next is, we take the remainder of your comments here. Hopefully we fulfilled a lot of the questions and concern that remained at the end of our DD workshop, especially related to the landscaping, the parking, the signage, and especially the visual and performing arts space. Every time we get information and comments from you all in the community, it helps us a lot in progressing the design, and especially as we're going to move through the actual detailing and drawing and preparing these documents for a contractor to build the space. We look forward to further comment, and thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis, for your presentation and all the hard work you and your company did to present this to the city of Menifee. We appreciate it. Council and commissioners, this is the time for questions only, and then we're going to move on to give the public an opportunity to speak, and then we will have discussion. So, council member and commissioners, any questions at this time? Okay, Commissioner Goodroyce, you're first.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I did have a question.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
I'm sorry,
Commissioner Goodroyce will yield to Commissioner Sanchez. Go ahead.
So you did say that there is no access, car access from the library to the community center, but did you say there is, you can walk from one side to the other?
Yeah, we're going to be encouraging pedestrian access with design elements for a pedestrian to be able to transit between the two parking spaces. Again, vehicular access could be designed within. However, it would come at the cost of 5 to 10 parking spaces, and that would be in antithesis to our directive to maximize parking in the new parking lot.
Okay, and will there be street parking as well?
I believe there's zoning for street parking throughout there, but one of the comments that we heard from the community was that people spill out and go park within, the neighboring houses, and that becomes a nuisance to them. And so, again, supporting the directive for us to maximize the parking spaces that we provided, and then also for the reciprocal agreement to happen with the library to allow overflow parking if there's a production to support the 196 people who will be attending a show.
Got it. And lastly, the 4 options that we were looking at, somebody asked what the capacity was, but I think for option 1, but I think the capacity is the same for all 4 options, correct? 196?
I believe so. I think that might be our total building, not building occupancy, but room occupancy for that space. I don't know if that includes if we can add more people to that if we set up those sides. I'm sorry, I don't have that information, but I can find it out quickly.
Okay, I guess I do have one last question. So the stage, whichever side is on, the chairs would be on one side. Is there going to be vehicle access to the back of that stage for loading and unloading?
There is. So if we go back to the site plan, I don't know if I'm able to get this back up there. Not only is our trash enclosure set up behind there, but there's also access. Let's get to that site plan. Oop. So if you look plan north at the top of the building there, you can see that there's vehicular access to the back and I'm not wearing my glasses, I can't see which number it is there. 7 and 6, yeah, so 7 and 6, that number 6 there is the operating door for the backstage element of the visual and performing arts space. So if there's sets that are coming in, if there's materials that are coming in, they can be brought in through that door via bobtail truck or otherwise.
Got it. Thank you.
Commissioner Gidroy.
I wanted to ask about flooring. You put on here durable special flooring for the visual arts. What kind of flooring is that, and what about the other rooms?
So for the visual and performing arts, we're actually looking at a type of gym flooring that isn't quite as springy as a basketball court, but still has that wood kind of parquet look to it. That comes not only with our own design expertise of these areas, but also for those rolling, telescoping seating banks. Those are one of the items that they had mentioned to us would be able to well withstand those being pulled back and forth. We're staying away from anything that was like LVT tile, things that might break and chip at corners and things of that nature, and to provide a solid surface that could support the visual and performing arts, but then also if there were sports going on in there, wouldn't impede that any either. So that's what we're looking at right now. I hope that
And the other
answers
spaces
question.
would be carpeted?
I'm sorry, the only carpeting that's gonna be in this building is gonna be in the administrative offices. Within the larger conference areas, that is more of like a luxury LVT tile that's in there. And in the grand access lobby, that's terrazzo flooring that's in there.
I have a quick question for Mr. Howell, and then we'll go to Councilman Diedrich. Mr. Howell, we were talking about the landscaping earlier. Are there a couple other notable places you've noticed oak trees in Menifee that I can share?
Do you mean larger oak trees or like more mature
Any
oak trees?
Yeah, I'm not a specialist in.
Yeah,
hey, that's
I mean,
an
there's
tree.
oak trees right here at the shopping center, the main shopping center, the Target and Lowe's shopping center, Menifee Marketplace. Up on Scott and all down Scott and Bundy Canyon, there's a lot of oak trees that even hang over the road there. And then there's also on Marietta Road, there was the development built Gallery Oaks that was built with the homes there. They actually couldn't take down some of those oak trees because of the age, the heritage trees that are there. So they built the homes, those are in people's backyards, and they're not allowed to remove those or anything. So there's actually oak trees there as well. But there's oak trees all down Newport Road, through our parks. There's oak trees all over, so all over the city.
Is the town center,
Okay.
the oak tree in the roundabout?
The town center does have, thank you, yes, Commissioner. Town center does have the main oak tree that's right in the roundabout.
Okay, thank you for
Yep,
sharing that.
Absolutely.
Councilman Diedrich.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had a quick question about the 196 capacity.
Uh-huh.
Just in comparison to other theaters, is that, 'cause I don't know, is that a large amount, a small amount? Because I'm thinking, so for example, my daughter used to dance competitively, and they would go to a high school in Hemet that had, had a center row seating left and right. And I was just wondering, comparison-wise, would this be able to hold something like that, or?
I think that's close to on par with what you would see at like a traditional high school, smaller theater. If you were good to go up into the collegiate level of seating capacities, it would be much lower than that. But in comparative, it does provide an ample amount of space for a large group of people. And of course, caveat, there might be some schools that are visual and performing arts focused and might have a grand theater in them. But for your average high school theater, this is comparable.
Thank you.
Commissioner Peterson.
Just want to ask if, to our community services, do we know how many people attended the Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans event?
Yeah, I want to say, I believe the capacity was about 200, so that's about the same size.
All right, good deal, thank you.
Okay, Council and Commissioners, I see no more other questions at this time in the queue. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
We do.
Okay, can you please call the first speaker, Madam Clerk?
Chris Carnes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Councilmen, and Commissioners. I am very impressed with what your architects have been able to do with the somewhat unspecific instructions they got at the last meeting. And personally, I think this is a wonderful solution, and I'm very, very pleased with the way it's gone. A couple things that I did want to mention. I think the loss of 5 or 6 parking spaces and not having those parking lots adjoined I think I would take the loss of 5 or 6 parking spaces. If you can go from the community center to the library and back out onto La Piedra, you're not going to disrupt the residents on Bayport. And I think whatever we do to not disrupt the residents on Bayport would be good. I think that we're asking an awful lot of them as it is putting this structure right in their front yards. So that's just personally, and if it's only 5 or 6 parking spaces, I think we can get away with it. 196 people, that's about the number of people that go to Menifee, because did you notice that they've already got Menifee's Got Talent scheduled? That's about what we have, about 200. And so the high school theaters around here are a little bit larger than that, but not much larger than that. And I think that's a very adequate size. And that did not include any side seating, and there's ample room for a fair amount of side seating to be put out as well. But by and large, I just, again, want to really thank you guys for the work that you put forward. It's a terrific amalgamation of what I think all of us were hoping that we were going to be able to see, and I'm really looking forward. Wasn't looking forward to it when I walked in today. And Mary forgot to remind me that I could have gone online and seen all this already, but now I am looking forward to it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carnes. Okay, council, now and commissioners, we are going to move on to the discussion portion. Fire away. Okay, Commissioner Faust.
Again, I want to thank our consultants for the renderings and for all the work that's gone into this latest design updates. I like the renderings, the color. I like the landscaping. I am a little concerned about the access only off of the side road, just for the impact on the neighborhood. And I was surprised at the connectivity to the parking lot of Menifee Library, but I understand we'd lose some parking spaces. With parking between the two is 168. It's a 196 seat theater. So even if it was, an average of one per person in the car, we'd make it. I do see the capacity for the conference rooms was somewhere around 300 to 96 as a maximum. But if 2 people came, that's 198 parking spots. Again, on an average basis, we'd still be able to avoid impacting the neighborhoods with street parking. Just for reference, Heritage High School's theater seats 800. I'm not sure about Palomas or Liberties, but it is quite a large theater over there. But I appreciate all the green space. I do like the oak embedded into the relief and the side. I prefer the signage up high, and as in the primary option display. I like the monument at the corner with that mimics the design of the building, as well as provides that digital board that we can use for advertising. I appreciate you guys throwing out the Menifee's Got Talent in the design drawing there. That was a nice shout out to our Arts Council. And I like the overall layout of the building. Are family restrooms a standard option now, or does that meet the requirements of gender-neutral bathrooms as a dual purpose? It seems like the men's room is going to be kind of tight on a big event compared to the other side. But it seems like at every event I've ever been at, the women's restrooms always have the longer line. So I appreciate that there's more space available on the women's side. Those are my comments, guys. Thank you.
Councilman Dynas.
Thank you. I do appreciate listening to what we almost told you last time and figuring out what you're going to bring to us. I think I like the outside. There is no secret that all of our nonprofits are looking for places to meet. This addresses that. I know we have a very active arts council. I think this little theater set up here is perfect because it allows that to happen. It allows different organizations to come in and do award ceremonies and all that kind of things. It gives them a home, a place of belonging, and at the same time, it can be taken out and used for a larger purpose, whatever that happens to be. So I think it fills many of our needs that way. I like the looks of the outside just the way it is. I would agree with David that the higher the signage, the better, because it'd be easier to spot when you're looking for it. If you're from out of town or whatever, looking for your kid and your grandkids play or something, you're looking for that. The only question, I did have a question. I was looking through this while you're finishing up here. The logo, the M with the blue and whatever that other color is that anticipated to be on there, or is that just for renderings?
If I recall correctly, I think in the last workshop there was some hesitation to putting the blue and orange M on the building. So it might still be represented on there, but
The reason I do that is because, I've been here 6 years, and that was here before I got here. So my concern is that sooner or later it's going to change. There's a cost then to change that. So if we just went with what you've shown us here, then that would be timeless, as it were, and not have to make any changes based on the way the direction the city moves in. So I would support just not having that on there. And you can put that on the little marquee thing there on the little signage there if you want to do that as a way to do that.
we did remove it from the renderings in response to those
Good.
comments last time.
Other than that, I think it gives our residents something that they don't have right now. I know when we did our strategic planning, our visioning, that this was one of our top priorities. I'm excited that we're finally moving in that direction. So I think we're almost there, and I certainly support it the way you've presented today. I want to thank you for doing that. That's all I have.
Commissioner Peterson.
Just to second Commissioner Faust and Councilmember Dynas on parking, I believe you were mentioning parking, right? Yeah, well, the one thing is, when it comes down to the exit strategy for an event, if I lived in that neighborhood, if that's the one out, I don't know, if we have an MOU kind of for the shared parking with the Riverside County Library, those, 5 spots near the number 8 that's currently displayed on the slide that's on the presentation, those 5 spots could actually be put into some really good use as, kind of a byway through the library's parking lot to get out, another way. But yeah, that's just a thought, depending on what the county.
Councilman Temple.
Yeah, I love what you've done. I think it meets all the qualifications of what our city has asked for in allowing so many different people and groups to do things at our community center. On slide number 16, are you advertising Orange Crush? Or, because I'm more of a Coke guy, so I just wanted to know if that was going to stay there on the rendering. But I would echo what's been said about the exit. If you have, if it's a full parking lot, those 3 or 4 homes on Bayport are going to see those headlights and the exiting for quite a long time. So if we were able to add some drive-through capacity by removing 3 or 4 or 5 parking spaces into the library to give people the ability to exit directly onto La Piedra, I think that'd be wonderful, especially for those people that live on Bayport who would receive the brunt of that traffic. But an excellent job. I love it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gidroyce.
I wanted to ask about outdoor lighting on the building and in the parking lot. Mentioning headlights also brings it to mind. Have we had any discussion about the exterior, like in the wintertime, how it's going to be lit? How are the parking spaces going to be lit?
So we are utilizing kind of typical parking lot light pole standards for it. However, we're using less than, the directive is to use like around 2,700 Kelvin lighting temperature. This is in line with like many cities' dark skies ordinances, bird safety ordinances and things of that nature. Lighting are shielded to direct light straight downwards rather than flooding like in a lot of older parking lots and things of that nature. So it is something where I can't say that there would be no light infiltration necessarily, but that we are using shielding and temperature of lighting in order to try and mitigate the impact.
Okay, thank you for that. I also like very much what you've done with it. It really is, it looks like a finished building the way all of us envisioned it.
Thank you.
Mr. Dennis, I share the same concerns. I think we would be considerate neighbors if we can find some alternate routes besides Bayport into the adjacent parking lot or onto La Piedra. I think we have to be considerate. I wouldn't like living there. Doesn't sound like some of my colleagues would like living there. And I assure you, some of them will probably be sending us emails saying, hey, why didn't you think about us? So I think we should definitely consider that. And I'm going to go back to the oak tree. I think that, I think we should tell our Menifee story, and this community center is going to be a $20 million investment. I'd like to see the landscaping incorporate some oak trees so that this center can stand the test of time. We can tell people what our heritage is. When we're there, it's part of the placemaking, unique identity. Okay, Commissioner Peterson.
You and the oak tree. I wanted to clarify. I believe it was Christopher Carnes, our resident, that mentioned about the parking. But also, besides, I feel like some of the capacity is a little small. I think you guys did actually do an excellent job with the design. And I mean, this one drone view that you have up, well, drone view, I mean, that's a stunning looking building. I mean, it's.
We really wanted to bring an icon to the city.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Councilman Dynas.
Thank you. Talking about the traffic, I'm looking at slide 5, which has the diagram here of that. Was there any conversation of putting an exit only out on La Piedra, maybe a right-hand turn only, so that it'd be worth losing a couple spaces there, I would think, if we could put an exit only where they had to make a right-hand turn and take some of the pressure off of the driveway on Bayport, if that was discussed at all, or if that's even doable.
Yeah, there was some early iterations of the parking lot that did include access onto La Piedra, not specifically an exit-only access, but providing access there. And what we find is that when we apply the proper turn radiuses for fire apparatus and things of that nature that are city standard and our fire standard, we lost quite a bit of spaces. And so we opted to go on what we thought would be ideal for mitigating traffic on La Piedra and Menifee Road and providing the maximum amount of spaces within our givable.
Okay, well, it's worth the thought.
Councilman Diedrich.
Yeah, so along those lines, I think many of my fellow members up here have been discussing, including drive access between the two parking lots. Would that have the same issue as you were just discussing as a direct exit entrance onto La Piedra?
Meaning, would there be like a loss of parking
Well,
spots?
you mentioned like 5, right? So it sounded like it would be significantly more if we had an entrance exit directly onto La Piedra.
I believe from our earlier iterations that the loss of spaces were more drastic.
Oh,
for
that
the
way,
entrance,
okay.
yeah.
So a loss of 5 would be a little bit more reasonable, plus it would allow direct access between the two parking
Right,
lots.
potentially, yeah.
Okay, I think I would be in favor of that. I would also be in favor of, kind of a monumentary oak tree to draw attention to this designation. I'm also in favor of the higher signage on the perforated part of the top, and I wasn't unfortunately able to be able to participate in the last meeting and hear the discussions leading up to it, but this is an amazing building that both looks beautiful and will serve our residents well. So
Thank you. The team is very proud of, and I'm very proud of my team for the work they've done.
City Manager Villa.
Just had a quick comment on the parking lot issue. if we needed to connect the parking lots, I think we would have to make sure that it is very close to the existing driveway because to be able to control left turns and right turns safely. So I think what they've done here is I think they found the optimal layout. You really couldn't put another driveway closer to the intersection because it just becomes a turning conflict issue. So I think you know, it's not the ideal situation, but I think what they've done is probably try to make sure that the traffic is diluted during events, and it's not that many parking spaces, right? So we could probably have a show and the parking lot could be emptied in less than 10 minutes if everybody exits out. So it's not a super huge problem, and I think what they've done is they try to preserve as many parking spaces as they can on site. And if you had to, you know, if you had to combine those two parcels with one drive aisle, you may end up losing more than just 5 parking spaces, right? I'm looking at it from a design perspective, and it's really difficult to be able to put another driveway through there, a drive aisle, and not lose so many parking spaces. So it's kind of give and take.
Mr. Dennis? Yes. So I can't in good conscience say leaving only in and out of Bayport is okay with me personally. So what options can we as a body, can you give us a couple that way when we end this meeting we know what's going to happen next? Because we're not going to talk to you again after this. You know, this is the final design, so can you please provide us some options? That way we can give you direction. What can we do with this parking lot? Option A, option B, option C?
Mayor, I think just to add to the conversation, we have been in discussions with the county, and I think there's still, you know, as been suggested, an ideal circumstance would be to allow for that drive aisle and connectivity with the library, and I think that's something that over time we could work through. So the design as presented gives the primary option presented today, but I think it's a very real possibility that in the future, as we move forward with construction, that we can have that connectivity that allows ingress and egress either through the library parking lot or off of Bayport into the community center as presented. So, but those are things that would have to be worked through working with the county because you're involving another property.
Okay, so so stand by, and there's still hope. Yeah, okay. All right, excellent. So I see no one else in the queue to discuss. Well, City Manager Villa and Mr. Dennis, what final items do you need direction from us or clarification on that was not addressed?
I think I'm well put together to move forward into the detailing and drawing of the building now. A very productive conversation tonight. I know the team's going to be thrilled with the feedback. They've worked very hard in responding to the comments. You know, our philosophy is that we design for the communities that we're working in, not for, you know, any ego or anything like that. And so to hear members of the community and the council and the Parks and Rec Trails Commission to affirm that is the highest compliment that we can get. Our team members are watching online right now. I know they're going to be critiquing me later, I'm sure, but I know they've worked very hard. I'm very proud of them, and thank you for all of your input throughout the process. And we really look forward to seeing this come to life.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. Commissioners and council members, any other words before we send them off for the night? Commissioner Sanchez.
You're stuck on the oak tree, I'm stuck on the parking. So the library could always be, I mean, until if there are any changes down the line, the parking, having that pedestrian walkway, the library can always be sort of an overflow, right?
That's the idea that we're designing with now, is that it would act as an overflow, and I hope I don't see anything wrong, but that's what's agreed to now, right? is that it would be used as an overflow parking to the center. We'd provide ample pedestrian access, so there's no landscaping that's blocking. You don't have to walk through any bushes to get between the parking lots, but we would encourage for people to be able to walk across them, yeah.
Right, there's no county restrictions or anything from keeping folks from using that as overflow, parking there and walking across the pedestrian walkway.
It's already been discussed with them and applied, yeah.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everyone here in attendance tonight. We appreciate your hard work, Mr. Dennis, and your entire team. And we'd like to thank our city staff here and City Manager Villa and Assistant City Manager Jones and Deputy City Manager Kramer for all your hard work you do behind the scenes. Hearing no other words, I will adjourn this meeting at 6:36. Good night, Menifee.